Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. I'm back with the contest crew, Randy K5ZD, Dan N6MJ, Bill W9KKN, and Chris KL9A. Unfortunately, Chris had to sit out the CQ Worldwide phone contest, but he came back strong for the ARRL Sweepstakes CW Contest on November 2nd. I'm really anxious to hear what happened there that put him in first place. I'm looking at 3830 scores right now, and he is at 1215 QSOs, 1,215 QSOs, clean sweep on the sections with a score of 206,550. I noticed that the top 11 contenders in the single op high power category were all operating 2BSIQ or SO2R. Chris, tell us what happened in Montana.
I pretty much winged it. I've only operated sweepstakes. This was my fourth time. Did it high power at NK7U and then remote at K7ZS and then low power in Eastern Washington once. So I didn't know what to do. It's been 10 years since I've done sweepstakes, but it was the only choice I had for a shakedown myself before the big contest next weekend. Not sweepstakes, the CQ Worldwide CW the following weekend. So I got the station going. It took me another full day of work to get things the way I wanted. Did some Nintendo work. Of course, had to climb the tower because that's apparently what we do every contest now. And I asked Dan and Bill some tips on off-time strategy, and Pat and NRV was super nice and sent me his logs from previous years, and just kind of took what they all said and hit F1 a few times and did what I thought was right. You know, my main antenna was a tri-bander at 44 feet, and I didn't turn a rotor or anything. I had a spider beam pointed towards California for split directions, but the new antennas work great. I felt loud on all bands. 40 was great, definitely an upgrade. I just got on and worked, guys, like I know how to do, and it worked out okay. It's good to be on the West Coast this year. I wasn't on the West Coast, but good to be out west with 10 meters and 15. Definitely further east than people realize, and 10 wasn't as good as it could have been compared to the Seattle boys, but yeah, it worked out. It was fun.
Randy, why don't we work backwards and just tell us about the sweepstakes rules and how this contest is different?
The sweepstakes is one of the oldest contests that there is. I don't know when it started, but it was a long time ago, and it derived from the traffic handling days. So the exchange is a signal report. The exchange is a QSO number, and then something called a precedence, which defines your category. It's a letter, A, B, M, and S. There are a bunch of different ones. Your call sign, then something called the check, which is the year you were first licensed, and then your ARRL section. So it's probably one of the longest exchanges of any contest that we have, and the way the log checking is done, you have to really copy all of this stuff. You're only allowed to work a station once, regardless of band. So that puts a premium on really being able to go out and scour the bands and find people when they show up for an hour or so. It's why you see so many SO2R and operations, because the guys will be CQing all the time on one band while they tune on another, or in some cases CQing in two places. It is a contest that, to me, as a traffic handler, it's always kind of has a special place. Just fun to copy these long exchanges and get them in the log. But it is also a contest that's somewhat activity limited, especially in a week. It comes 1 week after CQ Worldwide Phone. And since CQ Worldwide Phone was incredible this year, a lot of people, I think, spent all of their radio points in the DX contest. And so it felt like, even though conditions for Sweepstakes CW were fantastic, the activity was down a little bit. So that's why you see Chris winning with 1,200 QSOs instead of what we might see in other years would be in the high 1,300s or low 1,400s. But still, for a first contest from a new station to come in and win the sweepstakes, and especially to win, just barely eke out a win ahead of N9RV, who's also in Montana, who has a much more mature station and has done the contest a lot more times, is really a fantastic accomplishment by Chris.
So it does beg the question, and I asked Chris this earlier, and N9RV is at 1,191 points. Are you concerned at all about the log checking and where you might end up?
I am not concerned about the log checking. I am concerned about my accuracy, but I always have that worry anyway. But I'm confident that I squeaked it out. But sweepstakes has been won and lost by one contact. Every QSO is super stressful. So on Sunday, this silly scoreboard, Pat and I were neck and neck for hours, and then different off times. And I have in-band capability, which I knew would be kind of nice since I'm not as loud. And there was about 2 hours where I gained 10, 15 QSOs and just from in-band. And that ended up being the difference. He couldn't catch up the rest of the contest off of that. So, you don't work double multipliers. You just work the sections, and when you get them all, you're done. But when you get a new QSO, it's like working a double bolt every time, and you get all excited. But when every QSO matters, it's super stressful.
There's nothing better though than getting all the sections in the log so that you just have to focus on QSOs. I've had plenty of years where I'm doing pretty well for QSOs, but I'm missing a section or two, and so you're constantly with the second radio tuning and tuning and tuning, trying to find that missing section. And then when you find them, of course, there's some huge gnarly pileup that you have to deal with. So it's great to have them in the bank.
Yeah, I worked the VE9 mult on 80, which was hard because it was early and all the East Coast was calling them. And I broke through the pileup, and I was like, oh my gosh, I worked this guy thinking that'd be the hard one. And I worked like two more later on. But my last section was Wyoming, and I can actually see Wyoming from my shack window, but I couldn't work one. I just couldn't find one. And I knew the bands were open, and finally called me, and I screamed, got all excited. But I only worked one. I heard another one, but he was calling someone else. So you're right. Had I missed one section, that would have bothered me till the end of time.
And that's where the extra stress comes from. A guy calls you that's in a rare section. You have to copy everything. If I have any doubt, I ask for a repeat, because you would hate to lose the one guy you worked in Wyoming because you missed his number or his precedence or something like that. So anyway, it's part of all of this stuff is part of what makes the sweepstakes very different. A lot of people don't like it because they say it's too slow, but to me, you need a contest every once in a while that forces you to really go find people, not just sit around and call CQ the whole time and move from one band to another. But that's me. There are plenty of people who would argue the opposite.
I used to be that guy.
I was going to ask you, how much time did you actually spend doing 2BSIQ versus searching and pouncing on that second radio?
Not very much. So I did 2BSIQ years ago in this contest, and I was really far ahead of everybody for the first 8 hours, like stupid ahead. And then the second day, it was like, oh, well, there's no one left to work, and I don't know what's going on. Well, the theory is all these guys are just CQing, and you got to work them when they're running guys, because they're going to get on for the rate spurt and then be done. So I made sure that was a point this time. When it was slow, go back and forth. But I try to change it up every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, and go back and forth and jump around. I had one radio on 20 meters almost all the time, unless I was on 10 and 15, and just bounced around a ton. And I think that, obviously that worked, but I think that's what I would do again. And I didn't get bored a single time, which I thought I would, because, 25 an hour is awful. But like Randy said, it really forces you to work. And I was stressed. It was terrible.
This is where having nearby competition probably didn't hurt either. Having Pat right there, and you could see on the scoreboard.
Yeah, the scoreboard with Pat. Pat is like the guy that got me to put this tower up and do this station. Like, he almost forced the issue. And he's been like super generous, storing gear for me for years and helping me dig the tower, the holes. And I mean, countless things he's done to help me with this stuff. And then, I was like, all right, well, now I got to beat him. It almost felt wrong. It felt right at the same time, but it was like, gosh, this guy's awesome. What am I doing trying to beat him? But, once the contest starts, it's no mercy. So, you know how it is.
Did any of you other guys operate in the contest, or were you all preparing for CQ Worldwide?
Preparing for CQ Worldwide. And was thoroughly worn out from the weekend prior.
Well, I was on. So, as you know, I'm moving to Ohio sometime in the near future, whenever I can get it all organized and stuff. But for now, I have nothing there. So my daughter wanted to go see a Taylor Swift concert in Indianapolis, so we drove to Ohio on Thursday afternoon or whatever it was. We had tickets for Saturday night, so that really kind of wiped out starting the sweepstakes. But I did find time on Friday to put up a 40-meter dipole, hanging it off a flagpole, so the antenna is maybe 12 to 15 feet off the ground. That's it. That's all I had. It's a K3, 100 watts, and a 40-meter dipole. And I was surprised to find that, of course, it tuned on 15. That was no problem. It actually tuned really well on 20. I'm not quite sure why. That didn't seem right. And then I could even get some power out on 10. So I did the Taylor Swift concert, drove back from Indianapolis, got at 4 in the morning, got on the air. There's nobody on in the sweepstakes at 4 in the morning. I mean, nobody. I worked maybe a half a dozen guys, 6 or 10 guys, and that was it. It was like, okay, I'm going to bed. So I slept for 3 hours. I got up, and I got on 40. And the best thing in the world is when you have a new location, and you put up an antenna, and you turn on the radio for the very first time, and you hear no line noise. You hear no electric fences. It was just, this is great. Now that I put my money down, I'm really glad this location is going to be good. So anyway, I spent Sunday kind of on and off, but I will say I got on Sunday morning first thing and pile up of guys because I was fresh meat. And Chris was one of the guys who called in, so he was clearly on the job in terms of finding new people who showed up on the band. I think I worked him in the first hour that I was running people. So anyway, it was very interesting. I worked 500 people. I broke the streak of my 1,000 QSOs year after year in Sweepstakes CW, but I figured 535 Qs with just a dipole and 100 watts was not a bad way to keep things going. So it was a very successful weekend for me, but a very tiring one.
I did the contest a little bit. I was going to do a casual effort like Randy normally does. I was going to sit down for an hour, work a few guys, and then I was going to stop. That was my plan. Well, I sat down for an hour, and then it turned into 2 hours, and then 10 hours later, I'm still sitting at the radio working guys, and it's just one of those things. You can't step away sometimes. So I did all of Saturday, and then Sunday I ended up just kind of playing around a little bit here and there, spending time with family. That was kind of nice. I think I ended up with like 850 Qs or so, but definitely more than I anticipated going in.
Yeah, for a guy whose back was hurting so bad he could hardly sit in a chair, and then we see him on the scoreboard, and he's just going and going and going. So clearly you are addicted to this working people stuff, as we all are.
What I found out is when I'm sitting down and I don't move, and when I'm just using one radio, I'm just hitting the keyboard, if I don't move, my back doesn't hurt. So I was like, okay, I'm not moving, I feel good. And so
So let's move on to CQ Worldwide CW. Randy?
I guess it's happening in a week. I'll be at home. I'll be single op, high power, probably go assisted, although I haven't decided yet. I just get tired of waiting for people to send their call, so it's more fun to have the cluster running. And I hate going through a whole DX contest and working 4,500 or 5,000 people and then seeing all these other guys who work 4,000 people, and I never heard them all weekend. So at least with the cluster, I get a tip off a win there in various places. But probably be my last worldwide from W1, so got to give it a go. The only complication is I'm in Salt Lake City the week leading up to the contest, so I'm going to get back late Friday night or Saturday night, so hopefully I'll get some sleep, caught up, and be ready to do 45 hours or so.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. I'll be operating from ZF1A along with Bill. We're going to be doing a multi-single, and we've got a really strong team, and we usually do, but this time we've added Steve and 2IC to the team. And everyone here knows that Steve is an excellent operator. We're super lucky to have him on the team, and definitely looking forward to that. So me and Bill are going to head down to ZF on Tuesday night on the Red Eye, get there on Wednesday. The station's mostly ready to go. There's just a few last minute items that we have to get going. The main thing to do when we get there is test everything out, make sure everything's working the way that we expect it to. And I'm expecting good things. We're going to be in the multi-single category, if I didn't mention that. And our goal for this time is to beat the North American multi-single record, which was set a really long time ago. Bill might remember. I think it was like 1999 or something. Some of the boys went to 8P something or other. And we did this contest 2 years ago as a multi-single from that same station. And we beat the score, and we thought we beat it by enough. But after log checking, the score was below the record. So we got to go in and try and do it again. So Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. I'm trying to look up that record now, but the and there's only a couple things. We were very confident in at least how we left the station after Worldwide Phone, and there's just a few things that we noticed that we need to work on. Like we're gonna somehow bring down 260 feet of half-inch heliax down through the airport. That's always a fun exercise in logistics. I've already tried to get the various team members to volunteer, pieces of it here and there, and there's no good way to do it except just roll it up and shove it in the suitcase, and it normally works out. But very, very excited for this team.
The North American record is 18.7 million. It was set in 99, and it was K4BAI, N4TO, and K1TO. So some guys who know how to work CW, they didn't really have any incredible numbers, 192 zones in 669 countries, but they must have worked must have had a really high points per QSO to set the record that high and not have you guys be able to catch it. So you got to be able to do it this year, because conditions are not going to be better than they are this year. If they're anything like Phone was, everybody's going to go to 10 meters and just be there all day.
The other record that I'm a little excited about is hopefully the rate record for CW high power, because I think we got, we hit that last year, right? Dan or no, we hit, yeah, I think for North America, we hit 390 QSOs in an hour multi-single, which is, sort of tricky. That was 2 years ago. That was in 2022. And we think we can do a little better than that.
That's impressive.
That is. Yeah.
You lost to log checking on the record 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to actually copy the calls right this year?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
That's a good idea.
Oh, I was just checking,
And we were ahead of their claim score, so we felt really good. And then we ended up losing a bunch of multipliers. And I wish I could be like, I can throw Bill under the bus and it was all his fault or something. No, a lot of them I worked.
Jeez,
man. So I remember I was all excited. I worked this CE2 on 80 meters, and I was super excited. It was double mult, and I was never in his log. So I take a lot of blame for that too. So I got to work harder, just like everybody else.
Well, when you look at the rate records for multi-single CW high power, it's P33W over and over again. These guys definitely have it figured out. So you have a challenge.
What tips would you guys have for the new or intermediate contesters that are watching the show?
There's no meters like 10 meters this year.
I don't know, man. It has not been absolutely fantastic out here because of mutual darkness to Europe. Is that window is small. So, I mean, you're in W1, so it's open all the time, but I don't think worldwide CW is going to be anything like Phone out here regarding 10 meters. Unfortunately,
it could be. Anyway, from advice standpoint, one of the things that you'll notice in the worldwide is pretty much the exchange of the station you're working once you know their call. There's a few exceptions to that. So there's no reason to send your exchange a bunch of times. It also means that your logging software is probably going to put the number in, but you need to pay attention, because every once in a while somebody will show up like 702A did one year, and he's sending a different zone than everybody's logging software thought, and a bunch of people lost that multiplier. But CW speeds are going to be really high from the big guys. They just are. But if you tune up higher in the bands, there are people going all different speeds. And the other thing is, because of the reverse beacon network, literally if you call CQ in the bottom 100 kilohertz of any of the bands, you are going to get spotted on the reverse beacon network. You got to send CQ and your call sign twice, and you're going to be spotted. And the guys, the serious multi-ops and so on that have people watching the RBN, they're trying to vacuum up every QSO, and they will come find you. So even if you don't have a big signal or anything, you can still call CQ, and you'll get some nibbles. And then if somebody spots you on the regular cluster, that'll get you some more. But the RBN, if you're not familiar with it, it's worth looking into, and it's also worth figuring out how to get the spots from the RBN fed into your logging software, so that if you go assisted, you just have this continuous stream of knowing everybody who's on the band all the time.
I totally agree. Make sure that so I haven't got as many last minute additions to Super Check Partial this year, which is interesting because normally before CQ Worldwide I get a whole flurry of them. I'm thinking about doing an update, probably either this weekend or very quickly before the contest, but that doesn't mean that people will update their databases. So if you have a last minute de-expedition that you're going to be going to, do send me an email. I'm not going to make any guarantees, but I probably will make a early update just for CQ Worldwide CW, because I just want to make sure that those entries are all there. As far as watching the cluster, I mean, Randy nailed it. I think that a lot of us stations that are doing these multi-ops, we're always going to be looking for in-band contacts. We're always going to be just trying to add people to the log. The other thing that you might also just, kind of listen for is that sometimes we need you on another band, especially if you're a multiplier. So just make sure that, when you hear the end of the QSO, I might ask you, 20 meters, 10 meters, 15, something like that. And I want you to, just kind of listen for it. And if you can copy the frequency, it would be really helpful if you could move over and just give me a contact on that other band. The only other thing that I'll tell you is that in these years where we have a lot of sunspots, it's very tempting to sit on 10, 15 meters all day long and 20 meters. Just don't forget about the low band QSOs. They're going to be struggle. It's going to be a struggle. 40 meters might be nice and noisy. 80 meters might be very, quiet and fadey, and same with low band. But just make sure you go down there and don't forget about those multipliers, because it'll really hurt your score if you don't. Every one of them might be a struggle, but don't assume that because the high bands are there, then the low bands, you don't need to spend time on them, because you do.
Yeah, and we have a lot more dark, as we pointed out earlier. We've crossed over the equinox, so more darkness now than sunlight in the northern hemisphere. So the low bands will have their times where they're pretty good. And you're right from a scoring perspective. And in the end, there's fun, but there's also score. And if you want your score, you need multipliers. And if you want multipliers, you got to do all the bands, and you got to try to cover them at all different times so that you at least get all the easy ones. And the expeditions will all be there. Remember, the whole bias of the contest is going to be towards the high bands. So you kind of have to show up on the low bands at the time when people are going to be there. So just as an example, there's a kind of a rule of thumb that says you go to 160 on the hour. So if you go to 160 at 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, you have the most probability that there will be that the expeditions will be there for some period of time. And they may not stay very long, but if you're going to find them, that's the best time. Sometimes people will show up at other random times and so on, hope they get spotted, that kind of thing. But if you go on the hour and just spend 5 minutes, or if you're finding people to work 10 minutes, you can really help yourself. There's not a rule like that for 80. 80 just always has people on it at night. So you just kind of have to work your way up and down the band. And then 40 never close. 40 to me is the coolest band of all of them in worldwide CW, because it's just open over the pole, got great long path openings at sunrise, and you just never know what you're going to get.
Last night, I was taking a quick spin on the remote into ZF1A, and I was listening on 160 and 80, because we already know 10 through 40 are going to be great. And the thing that's always the unknown, like they were saying at this time of the cycle, is what's 80 and 160 going to sound like. And so when I was listening on 160 last night, I'm always hoping to hear Europeans, and that's not always a guarantee from ZF. But I tuned the band, and there was OK4YL calling CQ with a decent signal, no problem at all on 160. And then took a spin on 80, and the Europeans were like bone crushing loud. I mean, F5IN's always loud, but he was like extra loud. He was like 20 over 9. So that really makes me excited about the opportunity to potentially break that record we were talking about, because we need all 6 bands to do that. So that was really encouraging for me. And as far as like preparation wise, we've mentioned this many times this podcast before. You just got to go in with a goal, set a goal ahead of time, and see what you want to do. Whether it be work some new DXCC countries, beat a previous record that you set yourself, or beat your buddy. But once you figure out what your goal is, there's other things that you can do to kind of prep yourself. You can go to, there's a website called ng3k.com where you can go in and it'll list the expeditions that are planned for this contest. So you can kind of get an idea who's going to be on, what should I be looking for. I need this country on this band, so I can look for them there. Those are all good things to kind of get you motivated to get started. But in the end, just I think when most people get in there, just the addiction of making cues is what takes over. But that's definitely the case for me. But I think those are the main things to kind of, just get yourself ready mentally and also physically prepared for the weekend. And I think you're going to do a great job.
Well, I don't know how to really expand on all the advice these guys got, but sometimes in the DX contest, people are hesitant to CQ, and with the high bands good, go up high and CQ. You're going to have all kinds of cool DX call you. You don't have to be that loud. Like Bill said, the in-band thing, if you're fresh meat, you're going to have all kinds of cool mults calling you with to have these fancy setups, and that's just fun. So when I was, operating with limited antennas and I had guys call me back, I thought that was super cool. And that's the way to do it. But I'll be on from KM7W. It's the first time in I don't know how many years that I haven't been at DX for this one. And I don't really like single out, but we're going to give it a shot. But I'm going to sleep this time and take care of, me and hopefully work a lot of cool stuff. I have some goals in mind, but they might be a little, I don't know, far reaching, but we'll see. The number one goal is to make sure all my equipment operates because it's all mine now. So if it breaks, I can't just fly home and let someone else fix it. I got to deal with it. So yeah, it's going to be great.
Hey, everybody, turn on that scoreboard. No excuses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're going to watch the scoreboard, you better be posting to the scoreboard.
Yeah, come on. No excuses.
Yeah, and it is, again, you have to manage your own expectations. Don't get psyched out by the scoreboard, but I find it incredibly motivating to just kind of keep up with other people, and also just the feeling like, oh, it either sucks for everybody or it's great for everybody. At least you don't feel like you're missing something. One piece of advice, do get the call signs correct, and do make sure that you're actually working somebody that you think you're working. The worldwide CW, there's a tendency for some guy will send his call, DX station will send his call, 5 guys will call him. He'll come back to somebody, and then all they'll send back is 599 in their zone, and everybody moves on. And most of the time, those people were actually talking to each other. But sometimes you have 2 DX stations on the same frequency, or they're really close, or somebody calls a little bit off frequency, and you think because the timing is so similar for all the QSOs, it's really easy to think you're working somebody and you're not. So if you don't feel like the timing is just right, it doesn't hurt to ask for them to repeat. That's a good way to get a confirmation. And just get the call sign right, because if you get the call sign wrong, there is a penalty in the CQ Worldwide scoring for busted calls, and an even bigger penalty for not in logs. And one of the dangers of using the cluster is that your cluster window or your band map will show a call, and you'll get there and you'll work somebody, and you think if you never heard the guy send his call, and you think what was on the cluster was it, you could be surprised later, because it's interesting when we check the logs how often we find that somebody left and a new guy took the frequency, and yet, there's a lifetime of a cluster spot. Oftentimes people have their thing set up for 15 or 20 minutes for it to stay in the band map. That's a long time for somebody else to come and take the frequency. So if you are going to use the cluster, do hang around until the guy sends his call, or ask him to send his call, or whatever. The main advantage the cluster gives you is you don't have to wait, or you don't tune blindly and then be stuck there waiting for some guy to work 3 people before he sends his call. At least you have some clue whether you should stick around or not. But do make sure you're working the person you think you are. That seems like really incredibly basic, but as the guy who does a lot of the log checking, I can tell you many people do not, and it costs them.
Dan, you take notes on that?
Yeah. I got it down here. Don't worry.
All right, just checking, man.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll wrap up. Thank you guys. I appreciate you joining me. Look forward to catching up after the CQ Worldwide CW contest.